Hey, welcome to the Sunday Social Podcast. My name is Derek. I'm your host, and it is 2025. All right. That is a huge deal. 2025. Who would have thought? Like, to me, that's a number in the future, but it's the present now. So hope your year has been good so far. Hopefully the resolutions that you've committed to, you're still on track. But then beyond that, hopefully 2024 wasn't so bad. Hopefully you, as a church, your church grew. Your online presence grew as a church, and you're just looking forward to getting better in 2025. So hopefully you got to learn. Maybe it's through this podcast, and got to grow. Maybe as an individual, or you're growing a team, whatever the case may be. I just hope that 2024 was a good year for you, but then also that you're looking forward to what 2025 has to offer, because I know I am. I'm excited for what's going to happen. And so without further ado, I want to go into today's topic because I think it's a good one. It's the first podcast that we're releasing of the year. And so I wanted to make sure that we are starting off on the right foot. But the topic for today is the 5 things that your church social media should be focusing on, okay? 5 things that your church social media should be focusing on. Now, obviously, there's a lot more that we can list. There's a lot of growth that can happen. But as we were talking to the team, just kind of discussing what we could put down here were kind of the 5 common things that we thought would be helpful. And maybe you were focusing on these in 2024, but I think if you focus and really highlight these this year, you're going to see some good growth. And not just numerical growth, but growth within your church, as far as the quality and the spiritual growth. Honestly, that's going to happen with that. So, the first thing that I would focus on, if I was you, is better storytelling. Okay, you think about the greatest brands out there, or even the people that you follow personally, man, they're just incredible storytellers. They have a way of engaging you and keeping you wanting to see more, right? And I think as a church, right, we have the greatest story in the world to tell, which is Jesus. He came on this earth, and he was born, and he had an immaculate conception. And then throughout the years, he preached this gospel that he was a perfect man, and then he died for our sins, right? Like, we have the perfect story that we can tell. And I think it's up to us to take that story and tell it well, right? Like, use the modern day forms of communication and be able to just spread that as much as we can. But then beyond that, on the other side of telling that story, right, of people hearing that story, is life transformation. And it's up to us to be able to use social media in a way that's sharing that life transformation. I think storytelling is the biggest way to be able to spread the message of Jesus. Because think about it. At least for me, all of the brands that I follow, I'm the most loyal to those brands, not because they tell me what the brand has to offer, but they portray what kind of lifestyle I can live because of that brand, right? You think about like Nike, you think about other sports brands like, there's one called On Cloud. It's like a running company. And instead of showing me what their shoes can do or what their clothes can do, they're showing people actually wearing their shoes and the transformation that they're having in their lives because of their products. Companies like Apple, right? They're rarely showing features about their computers, but instead they're showing creatives creating things on their computers, or families together watching things on their iPads, right? Like they're showcasing and helping you portray what it would be like if you were in their shoes. And I think that's so vital for the church. And I want to see more of that, right? I want to see more of people just showing what it's like being more relatable, honestly, because we're all human. We all have our own story. Why not utilize social media to be able to tell more stories? So some practical ways you can do that is, right, real life testimonies, right? Like having a specific person or a specific team that's in charge of just finding stories within your church, life change, things that are happening. I was once this, but because I came to know Jesus, now I'm this. Like we can have so many stories of that being told on social media. And then two, just like behind the scenes moments, like authentic moments. How can we story tell those? Worship team is about to go on stage to be able to lead worship, but man, they're praying together as a team. Or if you have a prayer team that meets in the mornings before service, how can we capture that in an authentic way to see like, hey, we're praying for you, we're here for you. Your pastor, right? He's praying for you, or the leaders in the church. Like, how can we authentically showcase those moments in our church? So I would say getting better at storytelling is going to be the first thing that I would focus on in 2025. The second thing is building community. Now you're saying, well, how can you build community online? Like, didn't we try that a couple of years ago? Not in that way. I don't mean building community in that way, but I think it's called social media for a reason. The first word of that is social. And I think we've kind of gotten away from that side of things because of the way content is now. Things are getting higher production and there's teams involved and all this stuff. But I think at the core of social media is still to be social. And I think churches sometimes can forget that. But it's beyond just posting about the next event that you have in person. But it's seeing social media as another tool to reach people. If somebody's commenting, right? Why aren't you commenting back if you're not? You should be commenting to every single person that responds to your content or a DM that comes through. Like, every DM should be responded to. But beyond that, like, how can you create meaningful interactions with people online? Is it like posing a question? One thing I wish that I can see more churches doing is just commenting on other people's posts. Rather than waiting for somebody to comment on your stuff as a church, why not follow the people that are already a part of your church and just respond to them? If they're posting something about their birthday, or maybe their child's birthday, or a major milestone in their life, because we as humans like to post that on social media, why not us as a church be on the lookout for those things so that way we can comment on them and be a part of their lives? Because we are the church. We should rally around people. And that's what it's like to be social, right? Like, we should be the church and at the forefront of just encouraging people in every walk of life, every stage of life, and responding to comments or messaging people out of the blue. I think that in itself can foster community online and be able to have an extra layer of depth for people to want to be connected to your church. So I think number two, building community is going to be vital and something that we should focus on in 2025 for our church social media. Number three is showing your church's unique personality. Showing your church's unique personality. Every church is different. I can go a church down to a church down the street, and then you leave that service and go to another church like a little down that street, and it's going to be two totally different experiences, two totally different types of people, two totally different types of community. Like, there are unique nuances to every single church, every single community. And as someone that's in charge of running social media, why wouldn't we want to showcase that? Like, we can't be ashamed of that. And here's the mistake that I think a lot of social media managers fall into is they're trying to reach the masses. They're trying to speak to everyone. But the reality is, if you're trying to speak to everyone, you're going to speak to no one, because you can't please every single person. I would, in 2025, get specific on the messaging that you're trying to get across, specifically when it comes to your specific community. Like, what your community likes, the nuances of your community, the things that only are specific to your church. So why not find a way to highlight those things to be able to find a way to be more relatable to your church? Because if I'm a person apart and I'm attending on Sundays, and I see things online or social media that I can't really relate to, like, why would I stay connected online? What would be the purpose of that? I want social media to be an extension of what the church is already doing. I don't want to have a different experience on Sunday and then go on social media and it's two totally different things. I want to be able to have it be cohesive. Some practical ways you can do that is highlight your leadership team. Maybe Maybe a lot of times we can see our leadership teams or executive teams at church or staff or whatever, and we think they're always serious, but they're funny. They have some funny moments. Like, why wouldn't we highlight their humor? Right? We always have that one person that's just always cracking jokes. Why wouldn't we just mic them up and just follow them around for the day and see like how they interact with people? Like, that is showcasing your church's unique personality. Or maybe there's some things that are memorable within your church, right? Like, there's some things that are specific to what your church is doing. Maybe there's a special day that you guys have every year, or there's a special initiative that you guys participate in every year. Those are ways that you can highlight your church's unique personality to show like, hey, this is who we are. This is what we love. Maybe your church loves sports. Like, it's just your pastor loves a certain team. And so because of that, your church loves a certain team. Why not showcase those things? They have like a Jersey Sunday or Super Bowl Sunday, whatever that is. Let's figure out ways to be able to showcase our church's unique personality. So that's number 3. Number 4, I would love to see us posting more content that your church relates to, not just content about your church, right? So it's yes, like I said, we're posting our unique personality as a church, but also what are some things that our church relates to? Like, what are some things that our church is going through? It would be silly of us to notice or know that our church is going through one thing, but then post about another. And so we have to be aware of those things. We have to be mindful and constantly just checking in. And one way you can do that is talk to your leadership team or talk to your lead pastor if you have access. Talk to your lead pastor and say, hey, what is something that our church needs to hear more of? Or what is something that our church is currently struggling with that we want to kind of touch on, right? Maybe they're struggling with anxiety. Maybe they're struggling with fear. Things are going on in the world that they're sensitive to, and they're like, I don't know about that. Well, maybe how about we kind of figure out a way to touch on that message, right? If your pastor's talking about certain things on Sunday, let's see how we can echo those topics, because there's a reason why your pastor's touching on them, right? He's very in tune to what's going on in the service, and so let's be an extension again to what is happening on Sunday and figure out ways to be able to do that. Practical ways though, like carousels, like, hey, you're struggling with fear, here's some verses you can read. Hey, you're struggling with fear, here's some resources we put together, books, videos, podcasts you can listen to. Like, let's be a church that can provide resources, because at the end of the day, like, yeah, we can pray for you as a church, we can do those things, but let's be practical. Let's be resourceful to say, here's a need. And as a church, we're going to figure out how to fill that need, because our church is going through it. Our church is a body, and we all come together when things are happening. So figuring out ways to just not post content about your church, but content that relates to your church, again, will just deepen that connection that people have towards what your church is doing on social media. So that's number 4, is figuring out ways to share stories and then just resources that resonate with your congregation's daily life. I think that's huge, right? Practical things, practical ways. If your church in the beginning of the year, a lot of churches do like fasting. It's cool to share why we fast, right? It's cool to share like the meaning behind fasting, but let's share practical things like, hey, if you're going on a water fast, this is what you're going to experience. This is what's going to happen. Here's some things you can do, right? If you're trying to do it, like a popular one is Daniel fasting. It's like, hey, here's some recipes you can make. Here's some things you can try. Here's a community you can get connected to. Like, let's be practical in what we're doing to help people along their journey, because again, we are all human. We're all human. Let's stop being surface level and let's start meeting needs practically. So that's number 4. And then the last thing, number 5, is more experimenting and less copying. More experimenting and less copying. I think 2024, one thing I saw highlighted was just a lot of trends happening. Like, I think one church would see a trend pop off, and then a bunch of churches start hopping on that trend, right? Another trend starts another church starts another trend, and then everybody hops on that trend. And it was cool because you got to see a lot of growth, right? I've seen tons of churches that numerically saw a lot of growth, but if you listen to our previous episodes, sometimes that doesn't correlate, right, to actual like spiritual growth or in-person growth. It doesn't really equate to that. So followers are cool, but it's not the thing we should be chasing. Instead, I think we should just try different things, experiment with how we're creating content. Just because something's working for another church doesn't mean we have to necessarily copy what they're doing. We can try it in a different way. We can post carousels in a new way, or whatever new feature comes out this year that we don't know about yet, but we're going to find out about. Why don't we try those things and not be so hesitant to embrace them? I know last year also was a big year for AI. A lot of people at the beginning were hesitant to embrace it, and I think a lot of the church too. Sometimes we can like just kind of wait to see what's going to happen. But I think AI, if you haven't already guessed it, but it's sticking around for good. It's going to be around for a long time. And so I think as the church, we have to learn to embrace those things and be in tune with what's happening. Look at other accounts. Don't just stay within the church niche, but look at other accounts. What are they doing? How are they utilizing social media? Experiment with things. Don't just follow trends. Try to set trends. Like, just try new things. I think we're afraid to just post content, but the reality is, if one content doesn't, one piece of content doesn't do well, we have another chance at just posting another thing. And then, to be honest, if you think about it in the grand scheme of things, like, so what if something flops? People are still going to show up on Sunday and learn about Jesus. So let's just be able to have that mindset in 2025 to say, like, I'm just going to continue to keep posting and try new things. And if it doesn't work, all good. If it does work, that's even more incredible. But I think more experimenting within church, trying new things and being innovative. I think I would love to see churches just try to think outside the box and just try different things. And that's obviously subjective to your context, but trying new formats and just being able to see what works best for your church. Only you, as a social media manager or person involved in your church, knows what's best for your church. So try those things, experiment with them, and see how that goes. But yeah, to wrap it all up, those are the 5 things that I would say as a church that we should focus on social media in 2025. And if we do, I believe that we're going to see a lot of growth. We're going to see just a lot of things that will allow us, again, like I said in the beginning of this episode, to get that message across, because we have the greatest message to tell. It's up to us as storytellers to be able to take that story and tell it a 1,000 different ways, because we're responsible. There's a weight that we carry on social media for us to be able to tell that story. So that's all I got for this episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. I think it's vital for us to just start the year out talking about these things. And I'm curious too, like, what are some things that you feel should be focused on more? Maybe there's some things that I didn't touch on this episode that you're like, man, I would love to see more of this. Or maybe there's something that resonated with you. Let us know in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube, and we would love to hear about those things. And then beyond that, if you haven't yet subscribed everywhere that you can, follow us, engage with us, share this with somebody if you feel like this was valuable for them to listen to. And hope you enjoyed it. But other than that, thanks for watching this episode, and we'll see you guys in the next one.